Okay, welcome along to our second hour of the presentation this afternoon. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Before I continue on, I don't see any questions in the queue, so I'm just going to take that and continue on. So hopefully, again, everybody's fairly familiar with MFA and what's going on, but I will touch on a few advanced options here. At the end of the day, the majority of compromised accounts, the statistics bear out that 99.9% of them did not have MFA. All right, and to me, this is the scaring thing. So if you look at these reports, the majority of Microsoft 365 admins don't have multi-factor on their accounts, and 97% of Microsoft 365 users are not using MFA, right? 97%. Now, you've got a technology like MFA, which will virtually eliminate the chance of business email compromise, and people aren't doing it, right? So what's the problem? Why is it not being implemented? It's just, again, I cannot understand this, and this is where I think you have to, again, be, strong with customers who push back on it, because it is such a risk not to have MFA. There is no reason not to do it. Now, the reason is because MFA, as we talked about right up front, is available in every single Microsoft Office 365 tenant. So there's no reason not to do it. Now, where the value add is in the advanced offering with Business Premium and E5, and what you can provide to differentiate yourself from the crowd, is to offer what's known as passwordless login. So instead of being asked for a password, or in addition to a password, you can be prompted with a number here, and you can match it basically on your phone. Now, to achieve that, you need Azure AD P1, and you get that with Business Premium as well as E5. Now, passwordless can also be extended to Windows Hello. So again, my workstations are Windows Hello capable. I turn them on, it recognizes me biometrically and logs me into the device, and then securely logs me into my tenant. Again, more secure than using a separate authenticator. You can also use the authenticator if you want, and also things like YubiKeys. So for environments that don't support mobiles, or customers or people who don't want to have the authenticator app on their phone, you can go and invest in YubiKeys, or the equivalent hardware tokens. Now, the value add you can bring to the market above and beyond what people are doing, or apparently not doing, with MFA, is you can say, look, these are the solutions we can provide you. This is the benefit of buying modern hardware. We talked about the value of updating equipment to the latest technologies, and one of the advantages here is the capability to do things like Windows Hello for Business, and to make life more secure and easier to operate with modern applications and modern hardware. Now, the first step in that process is to do it for yourself. Set it up so you can demonstrate to the customer. Every customer that I go to, I open my machine, turn it on, it recognizes me, and it logs me in without me touching it. I can guarantee you that you get a question from the customer: how did you do that, and can we have that as well? All right, so these sort of things are standard available with Business Premium. So the idea is we can do secure authentication. All right, now, what I was really excited about this morning was the announcement from Microsoft, which I'll show you here. They have now set up the capability that when you want to do MFA, instead of having to put your password in, it will basically display a number on the screen as I showed you, but then your authenticator will give you a screen like this, where you firstly will see the location you're logging in from, a map, and you will also then be asked to match the number, or enter the number, type the number into your authenticator or your mobile device that matches what's on the screen. So that overcomes people just going yes, 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 and allowing people in. So Microsoft have just enabled this today. You can turn it on inside your tenants if you've already got passwordless turned on. If you haven't, you'll need to set that up, and you'll need Azure AD P1, which is part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. As mentioned in the document there, we'll show you how to do that. Now, if you want to go through and just have a simple button press to say, yes, I approve it, you can do that. But as you can understand, it's not particularly, not as secure as the previous option, because, you know, people hear a beep in the middle of the night, they reach over, push their phone and allow an attacker into the environment. So not my recommended option, but it is available for you if you want to do that. So you can do your multi-factor using a phone call and a text message. Obviously, text messages are frowned on these days. They can be intercepted. It's rare. So having SMS with a text message is better than no MFA. So that should not be a reason to do MFA. But best practice is generally to use a mobile app to achieve that, and the Microsoft Authenticator is going to give you the most capability out there. All right, so hopefully everybody's, excuse me, happy and familiar with, let me have a coughing fit. Happy and familiar with Microsoft MFA. Are there any questions on any of that or around MFA before we move on? Again, all the documentation that you see in the slides will be made available after the fact. What MFA, if you as an IT provider need to log into the user account, can you do? Well, you can do it a number of different ways. Each Azure AD account supports 5 different tokens. So you could have, you know, a dedicated app that you use for your clients. You could use what's known as the app, the secure app model. There's lots of different ways to do it, right? But again, it depends what you're trying to achieve. I think you've got to be very careful about doing this because MFA is designed to be a per user protection for the account, but there are certainly ways to do it as a provider if you need to do it. But again, just be very careful because you are effectively bypassing security to do that, and especially if you have an insider attack or something, again, be very careful. But there are ways to go and configure that. And remember, Azure AD will support up to 5 independent tokens for each user account. So you could have one account token MFA that works for your customers shared across your organization. But again, be very, very careful about that because effectively you're bypassing the capabilities of security. Are there any other questions on MFA? All right, well, I assume that there aren't any questions and I will continue on. So security defaults is something Microsoft has enabled probably about 12, 18 months ago. And you'll see this if you go into properties and then manage security defaults. What does security defaults actually do? And it's on by default in any new tenant. So it's going to require all users to register for MFA immediately. It'll give them 14 days to do that, but they will require MFA. It will require administrators to MFA when they need to do any admin. So it's going to enforce that policy. It's going to block legacy authentication at the boundary, but it'll still be on inside the tenant, but it will block it at the boundary. So it's a step in the right direction, but you really should block legacy auth throughout the tenant. And it will also require the users to perform multi-authentication when required, and it will protect the Azure resources as well. So turning on security defaults will do all that and is doing that out of the box immediately for you. It's doing that on all new tenants. You can enable it in any existing tenant. And again, it's just a simple turn on. But you'll notice that if you do enable it, that security defaults is not compatible with conditional access. So conditional access, which we'll come to, is part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium E5. And if you are going to use that to do blocking by country or specific application, then you'll need to turn off security defaults. So the best practice is the tenant will come with security defaults enabled. You need to set up the appropriate policies to replace those and then turn off security defaults going forward. But again, they will be on by default. Are there any questions on security defaults? So conditional access comes with Azure AD P1, which is included in Microsoft 365 Business Premium and also E5. So it's included with Business Premium. Legacy authentication is blocked by security defaults. That is correct, but it's blocked it at the boundary. So think of it like blocking at the firewall. my advice to you is you should disable legacy or throughout the tenant, so it is not enabled anywhere. Okay, so again, best practice is not only to block it at the boundary, but also block it internally. All right, so yes, Benjamin, conditional access comes with business premium, as I've highlighted. Any other questions on security defaults? No? Okay, all right, so let's move on and talk about Defender. Now, Defender is one of those products, unfortunately, from Microsoft that is still going through a number of name changes. The most recent ones are the ones I have here. The big change, obviously, is Cloud App Security is now called Defender for Cloud Apps. Azure Security Center and Azure Defender are now Defender for Cloud, and Azure Sentinel has become Microsoft Sentinel. The idea is to aggregate this all under one Defender brand. The reason is that obviously now it supports iOS, Android, Linux, so it's moving away from being a totally Microsoft-centric technology or protection capability to supporting a wide range of clients. So that's why this naming convention has occurred. But in essence, the idea here is that the way we protect things, if we use Defender for Office 365, it's going to protect us from phishing emails, from malicious attachments and links. We've then got Defender for Endpoints that we can put on our devices that will look at and protect us from things occurring on there, PowerShell, trying to get admin access and so on. We've then got Azure Defender, which we can then put on our servers or our virtual machines or virtual environments to manage and control and report on the security there. We've got Azure Identity Protection, which we'll talk about, to look in more depth at the identities, do dark web searches and verify whether passwords are being reused. And then we've got our, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, which was, like I said, Cloud App Security. So again, the model here is this integration that we get with the Microsoft environment, and a lot of this we're getting now with Microsoft 365 Business Premium already included. Now, we've talked about how the Defender for Office 365 works. I hope I don't have to go over that in too much more detail. The idea is an email comes in, suspicious email comes in, it's sent to a sandbox if it's an attachment to open to see what it does, or it's sent through a reputation proxy to protect the links there. We talked about the location of those policies, and the important thing here, the takeaway is each of those will require configuration. Out of the box, there are no policies in place for Microsoft for Defender for Office 365. So make sure that you go in and add those policies. Again, that's an example of the safe attachments, which we need to update. And the idea is if a user clicks on it, they'll see a website like in the bottom left, right-hand corner there, that will prevent them from going to anything that is known to be malicious. And at the back end, you can report on who clicked, what the clicks were, where the potential destination was, so you get all that reporting capability. As mentioned, you also get the integration and with SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Teams. So Defender for Office 365 is not just an email technology, an email security technology. It also works with your files and those services there as well. And we did demo that and had a look at that. So unless anybody wants me to go back over that, let us continue on. So some recommended add-ins I would suggest that you look at for Outlook is the report message and the message header analyzer. Now, if you haven't seen these are both free add-ins from Microsoft. So let me find the tenant where they're already, where they are already in place. Go to this one and then go into email. So in here, when we look at an email, we'll see that there is, let me see if I can find one that's come from an external here rather than the normal internal warning ones. Where's an external one? This one here. All right, so if we have a look at this email here. All right, so if we go up here, you'll see that one of the first things I've got is this add-on here called the Message Header Analyzer. This is really handy to dig in and look at, obviously, the email headers. So I can see where the emails come from. I can look at the anti-spam ratings and what policies it's gone through and what the ratings are, so I get an idea there. I can also look at, things like the SPF. So here you can see that it passed, you can see that it passed SPF. You'll be able to see the DKIM signature. So we'll know that DKIM is again valid. You'll be able to see any DMARC content as well, plus any of these other or specific headers. All right, so very, very handy tool that I would suggest you look at implementing across your environment. The other one is this report message. So I can report a message as junk. It adds it to the junk mail intelligence. I can report it as phishing. So the user can report it as a phishing email, and I can also tag it as not junk. So the benefit of reporting it as phishing is it helps train the user to think about the emails. It will feed that intelligence of phishing emails back into your policies, your environment to make it smarter, and it will feed it into the global environment to also make it smarter. Now you can also set up an alert. So if we talked about alerts originally, you can set up an alert so that it will tell you when a user reports an email as phish as well. So you've got the ability for it to trigger alerts for you as well. Now, one of the best practice approaches is not to allow users to go in and add these sort of add-ins, which we'll get to. So the best practice approach is to push it out from a central location, and you can do that with PowerShell, but you can also do that from a central location here. So if you go into your integrated apps here, you'll see that what you can do is you can get apps from the store. You could get the report message, you could get the message header analyzer, and then what you would do is simply set up a policy to push that out to your environment. So those integrated apps are apps that you can be pushed out from a central location as an administrator to all users or to a specific group of users. You can do it in the web interface as I show you here, but you can also do it with PowerShell to automate that whole process if you want. So when you look at adding value, the question becomes is, look at each item. So if we look at what's the value you're adding to email, if you're just moving data, that's not much. But if you're, for example, adding, report message header analyzer, find time, for example, is another value add that you can add. That's going to, again, allow you to charge more, to be a premium offering, and to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So look at what you can add to Outlook when it comes to value. Another best practice is you don't want to be having the capability or allowing the capability to auto forward emails. There is no reason, zero reason, to have any emails forwarded outside the organization. It is bad, because that's exactly what attackers will use to compromise systems and gather intelligence. So if someone does require a forwarding for some legitimate reason, again, they should go through an application process, fill in a form, you get the customer management to sign off on it, and then you implement it using a mail flow rule. You don't let them forward out of their inbox or using Outlook rules. You need to block all that. Because again, the idea is the user can be compromised and the attacker can use that to gather intelligence. If there is a legitimate reason for forwarding, the solution is a forwarding rule configured by administrator once that has been signed off by the organization. And Microsoft's default standard environment now blocks auto forwarding of emails. So all of that stuff is now generally turned off by default, and it should be maintained that way. So again, a best practice is no forwarding of emails automatically outside the environment that haven't been authorized and approved by management. Now, this is probably the area where we're going to see the greatest growth in attacks. This is OAuth Applications. And basically, it's like the message header or the report message thing that I talked about. A user will receive an email saying, look, we've added a new app, we've updated AV, this is an enhanced calendar for your environment, please click on this. When they click on this, they will get a message that looks like that, asking for permissions. And the user, we all know, will just click on it and go, yes, 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 just go away. And that's effectively giving the attacker a backdoor capability using an OAuth token directly into that mailbox, which means that the attacker no longer has to log into that mailbox. The attacker doesn't need to use MFA. And as you'll see here, the rights here would give that app the ability to read and write files and the ability to read and write items in all site collections and read the profile. So again, they will send a crafted message and try and get the user to accept this sort of OAuth application and give backdoor permissions to the environment. Now, the good news is it's as simple to fix as running one line of PowerShell, which is that, or you can go into the interface and go into settings, org settings, go into user consented apps, and you can disable the capability for the user to consent to apps. So again, the idea here is you turn that off so users can't do this individually. If they want a particular add-in in their Outlook or they want a particular item, again, best practice is they apply for it, it's approved by management, then you roll it out from that central location I just showed you. As an administrator, you get the approval, you go into the admin area, you add the app, you push it out, and you manage it via policy. The user should never be allowed to individually add applications to their environment, because we all know that they're not going to read any of the prompts. Now, another way to view OAuth apps is to go in and have a look at your cloud app security, or Microsoft Defender for Cloud apps now, and that will show you the OAuth capabilities. So if you do have that enabled, again, the idea here is if we go to portal.cloudappsecurity.com. Oh, I had a button there I could have pressed, didn't see that. This will take me to, and we'll talk about this in more detail too, but this is a monitoring, think of this like an additional monitoring console. Have the capability to access, and if we go into here, you'll see that you've got the option for OAuth Applications. And if I select that, again, you'll see these are all the third-party OAuth applications that I've got. And again, if I want to disable any of them, I simply select that and it will notify the users that this app has been banned. I'm not uninstalling it, I'm just banning the app and preventing traffic going through it. So it's as simple as doing that, and that is one of the major benefits here of this cloud app security, which we will get onto in more detail. And again, typically those apps are, like I said, these ones here, which again, or did I not close that window? But again, they will receive an email, they'll click on it, they'll put in the add-in, and again, if you want to see what add-ins are here, go into here, and these are all the add-ins, that legitimate ones that have been added in, but you can also obviously add in malicious ones as well, because they could go in and get an add-in there manually. It will go through the store here, but they could be tricked into loading that by an attacker. So I see OAuth as the growing way that attackers are going to be able to send a request, a legitimate email. It's going to look legitimate. There's going to be no malicious attachments, and they're going to try and get the user to click on a link and then approve permissions to give the attacker a backdoor to the environment. That becomes much, much harder to effectively track down, because what it's doing behind the scenes here, it's actually going in and creating something which we did look at before. These applications is Azure, what's called an Azure AD application. So by them clicking those permissions, what it's doing is effectively going into here, and it is going into, see where I've got app registrations. It's basically creating an application in here. All right, and then what it's doing is that permission screen you see is going in and providing API permissions here. So that's effectively what it's doing. So tracking this down, nefarious ones can be, a little bit of a challenge as well. So again, watch out for those. They're definitely coming. Turn off the capability for users in the tenant to add these themselves and get them to go through an approval process as I outlined to be more secure. So Taz has a question. We've set up admin workflow rules with OAuth apps for our customers, but we have noticed a potential limitation with receiving admin approval requests to a distribution list we have set up. Do you know if there are limitations? What kind of email addresses? Not off the top of my head. I suggest you log a call with Microsoft as I've outlined before. So I will also point out that distribution lists are an old approach. You should be looking to move your DLs into Office 365 groups, and that may be another reason there are limitations. So I think if you speak to Microsoft, they're going to say, look, you know, there are limitations about distribution groups. We're not spending time and working with them. They will not support the latest capabilities. You'll have to move to Office 365 groups to achieve that. So my gut feeling is it's something linked to that. But again, log a support call with Microsoft and ask them for the specifics around that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're going to say, yeah, DL groups are old technology, unfortunately. Are there any other questions there on OAuth applications and the approach that you should take? If there's not, again, just give us a thumbs up so we can continue on. All right. George, oh no, George had his hand up. George put his hand down. That's right, missed that button. Yep. All right. So again, let's move on quickly to file security. Okay. So again, if you aren't aware, there is a version of every single file kept. Every change of every file is kept. And by default, there are 500 versions of every file kept. So you can roll back to any point in time, any change in time. Like I said, automatic versioning is enabled by default. When you delete a file, it goes to the recycle bin for a total of 93 days. After that, it is purged, but you can retain data further using retention policies, which again are available for free. You can use a wizard to restore a library, as I indicated yesterday. You can, the advantage of using this capability to pull back individual items or groups of items is it's a fairly straightforward select and push the button and roll back. So if you get, or if a customer gets, you know, malware, then they can go back to a point in time because each one has a version, they can roll back to that point in time. So again, it's a very easy process to recover from malware on the desktop, which may be synced up to SharePoint because every change of a file has a version and we can always roll back to, you know, 500 previous versions. If a file is deleted, it goes to the recycle bin for 93 days. After 93 days, if there is no retention policy in play, then yes, the file will be purged from the system. But remember, that is a file that has been deleted. Okay, so it's retained in the user, so the user can recover that for a period of, I said, 93 days by default, and that can be extended further, setting up retention policies. Now, another thing to note here is that OneDrive for Business will potentially retain data for 10 years. So if you delete a user's or a user leaves and you delete their OneDrive and you want to recover that, that data that has been deleted can be retained for a total of 10 years. Now, out of the box, the default is 30 days, right? That's what you get with every basic tenant. So again, best practice policy would be is to go in and every tenant that you have to upgrade or to change that default from the minimum to the maximum, because there's no downside to this. There's no additional cost to you. There's no price to pay here or impact. It's just a matter of turning that feature on. So my advice to you, and this is what I would do everywhere, is to every user to go in and change the minimum retention of deleted OneDrive for Business to 10 years. All right, so that means that Microsoft is going to retain and allow you to recover data for a period of 10 years. Now, you can also enable retention policies. Doing so, implement something called a preservation hold library. This basically creates a third recycle bin. So you have your user recycle bin, your admin recycle bin. You can enable a preservation hold library recycle bin, which can then retain data forever. Okay, so in the Microsoft 365 environment, you can retain emails forever. You can retain files forever. Okay, so, and you can recover that from the environment without the need for any third-party tools. All of that is built into the system and available with Microsoft 365 Business Premium and also E5, as well as many of the other basic SKUs as well. Now, if you do need to find information, you can use a content search. So again, a content search allows you to look across all the information, whether it's deleted, in recycle bin, and so on. Whereas you'll see here in this example on the screen, I've got an email back from 2017. I've been able to find it, recover it, view it. All right, so content search is going to give me that capability to look across all the user's information and recover that. Now, the difference between a content search and EDiscovery is becoming more legal. The idea is you're looking for specific information that you typically will need to export for a court matter, a legal matter. You'll need to, prove how you searched it and, provide data around that. So again, think content search as a basic, where's the stuff I need? Think of EDiscovery as, I might need to provide this to a third party. It's got more power. You can create what's known as a case, and you can have multiple searches inside a case. So a case may be searching for, transfers in one person's mailbox, and then maybe, airline tickets in another. So that's the idea with EDiscovery. The concept is to think of it as a legal case, a legal matter, and you're bringing all of that together largely, under a single banner here. So the idea with this is, again, if you go to the if you go to the easiest way to get to it is to go to the compliance area. So let's go to, under C, which is up here, compliance. So you'll see in here that you've got the capability under audit. I think it's in compliance. Let's have a look. Could be in security. Here we go. So you've got the ability here under audit. So these are the audit log searches we've talked about. So they're looking at your logs. This content search is looking for, documents, emails, and remember that everything you put in Microsoft 365 basically is searchable. So we can find any information, whether it's deleted or not. So you'll see in here that if I go in, let's go and have a look at this one. And I can keep that search, I can rerun it. So you'll see here that I've searched for, a particular item. You'll see that it came back with 6 meg find. I can go in here and let's edit the search and just see what I was searching for. Go next, we can update this. You'll see it's going to search, email boxes. I can search SharePoint. I can search public folders. I can target individual users and groups. So I don't have to search everything. And you'll see here that you can now build the content using keywords. So I'm looking for a particular word in an email. It's also now going to support KQL, which is interesting. And once I've done all that, I would then launch that search. It would then basically go out and run and give me the results that you'll see here. So we go back here, and I think if we go back into this one and look at the sample, so this will now give me the sample results. Let's try again. Maybe just like my browser. Doesn't like me for some reason. All right, so let me close that, close that, close that. Didn't like me editing that for some reason. Let me just try refreshing the page and go straight into it again. But we'll be able to look at the content and potentially export it as well. So let's go in here, review a sample. Let's see what happens here. No, I'm getting the same error. All right, might have something to do with the browser here. But you'll be able to go in and access that information. Now, underneath here, a little bit down, you'll see there is the EDiscovery option here. And you'll see that you've got a couple of different options. You've got the core, you've got the advanced, and you've got the user data search. Now, the core is the basic entry-level EDiscovery, which you get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium and whatever. The advanced you will be getting with E5. What's the difference between the two? Well, advanced does the capability with far more intelligence to make. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, or someone's having a conversation about, an illegal topic, the AI can then search sort of, the grey areas around those dates to see if anything else is linked to that matter. Whereas a pure core search, you've got to specify, I want to look for this particular item in these particular location. So here's a search that I ran. This is the search, and I can put multiple searches in here, and then I can choose to also hold the information, which means that if I place it on hold, it means that if a user deletes it or changes that content after the fact, then I've still got the original. All right, so that's the concept behind litigation hold, is the item is frozen in that point of time. You have a copy of it no matter what the user does to it after that. We've also got the ability to export the data. That will all be tracked and audited. So again, one of the challenges with EDiscovery is if you have an administrator that goes rogue or an administrator who exceeds their privileges, they can run an EDiscovery search on the CEO's mailbox and dump all the CEO's emails and then take them offline and do something nefarious with them. So having this capability where it's tracked and it's audited and has alerts to tell you when this sort of thing happens is definitely a worthwhile investment here. Okay, so again, we can control the permissions. We can do all that with EDiscovery. So the advanced EDiscovery, you'll see that again is an E5 capability. It has more of those features. All right, it's got, again, a better capability in here. So if we go in here, you'll see that there are, again, more options here. So we've got better data sources, we've got collections, and a collection could be internal and external data as well. So maybe the external data is Twitter, Facebook, a third-party app that interfaces. We can also send the results to review. So the idea would be is one group of people would do the search and find the material. Another group of people, which are independent, would then review the material to see whether it's worthwhile pursuing or presenting. You can also send communications here. So what that means is that's going to tell the user or provide you with a template. Let's go in here and just show you what that looks like. It allows you to provide a template. Here's the email that will be sent out to the user who is, under investigation. They would then need to agree, or they would need to acknowledge that they are being investigated and the investigation has commenced. So it's, again, far more about the legality side of it. So that's really the advanced EDiscovery. The last option here is a user data search. So these are dubbed data subject requests. These are normally more associated with the EU. So in the EU, you have an EU citizen has the right to go to a business and say, show me all the data you have on me, and then also delete all the data you have on me. And that obviously is very complicated in many organizations. But again, it's built into the Microsoft 365 capability to allow you to search for that and then present that as an export, give it to the user, and then potentially remove that from the environment. The reason you should think about this and maybe talk to users is eventually I think the EU GDPR is going to become sort of a worldwide standard, and there's a good chance that governments around the world will adopt some components of it for their own compliance and data protection needs. So in essence, like I said, Microsoft 365 Business Premium and E5 correctly configured are going to retain all the data from all users forever and allow you to search through and recover all of that information if you require, built into the product with no additional costs. Yes, so Insider Risk is an add-on. Again, it's very extensive in what it's doing. It's relatively new, but it is an add-on to E5 at this point in time. Again, it's aimed at targeting, an internal administrator who goes rogue and starts doing things they're not supposed to. At this stage, it is an add-on to E5 or any other SKU, but it leverages the same sort of technologies. All right, let's keep going. DLP, which is part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium, what does it do? It prevents, information leaving the organization. So think of a document with a tax file number, a document with a bank account, a document with a driver's license. And again, it needs to be set up with a policy. And this is something you as a provider would need to go in and configure for the environment. And there are, a number of templates that are available out of the box, which I'll show you, which I would suggest you implement immediately. And the idea is it prevents data leaking, whether that's nefarious or whether that's by accident sent outside the organization. The good thing, again, because of the integration, is that you'll see the warnings and the information displayed in the Microsoft apps and the sharing dialogues. So if you've turned on a DLP policy, it's going to basically appear everywhere and warn the user about this. And again, it's just a matter of going in and enabling it and then setting up the policy and then tracking that information. And you can target the DLP to different locations, Teams, Exchange, SharePoint, if you want different policies for different locations, and you'll get the reports. Now, the good thing, like I said, is these built-in policies and templates that are also targeted at each organization. All right, so you can go in and target a default set of policies. You can go in and you can customize these DLPs. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time working through the slides here, but believe me, there's a lot that you can go in here and really get down and get very nitty gritty about all this. And the example I'll show you shortly is that I have a file in my OneDrive. You'll see that it has a little red marker next to it. When I look at it, it's telling me that it has DLP applied to it. When I bring that up, you'll see that I get a warning as to why it is flagged, and it's flagged because there's a credit card number on it. And then I can determine whether I want to share that or not, or override that. Now, one of the other DLP capabilities is document fingerprinting. So this can only be done inside Exchange. It's going to be rolled out to other areas, but it's an Exchange feature. So what you do is you take a template. So think of an invoice, you upload what you use as an invoice. That is then used as a fingerprint, and any document that looks the same as the template or matches it to, 80, 90% or whatever you set, it will then flag that as a warning and prevent that. So you can fingerprint, in your own individual documents, the look and the feel of those, and apply the DLP engine to that. We can, again, report this on our reporting for our customers, set up notifications. We can, again, set up incident levels and, again, follow a number of the best practices. So the best practices are around implement the templates immediately, set it up in audit mode, and, again, turn on email so that you will know about this. And remember, as I said, DLP will apply on mobile devices, desktops, in all of your clients. Will give you a nice report for your environment. So the easiest way to do this is if we go in here. All right, so again, you'll see under here, there's that insider management risk, but we would need to, again, update the subscription as mentioned, but you can go in here and read about it, look at a video on that. The Microsoft environment also supports records management, but again, you'll typically need the E5 license to do that. So a record is you define a document as set in time, can't be changed. That's going to be the basis of moving forward. Microsoft have also added this privacy component as well. Again, I'm going to let you go in and read about that. Again, it's an add-on, but again, the idea here is to prevent, information leaking, outside the organization. Okay. So I think it would seem that the DLP now is over in security. Let's have a look. I thought it would have been compliance. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm not looking at the. Oh, here it is. It is here. There it is. Data loss prevention. All right. So the idea here is you would go in and create a policy. Again, no policies by default. If I want to create a policy, I select here. You'll see that I can select a template. And here is the Australian financial data. If I go to medical, there's the Australian health records. Under privacy, there are two policies as templates you can use there that are provided. You can create your own custom one, but my advice to you is go and set up those 4 policies as I've done here, and then implement them for customers, and then go and set those to alert only, and then go back to the customer and speak to them and say, look, do you realize that you've had all of this information leaking outside your organization? Now, if we look at the experience from a user's point of view, so imagine I'm a user, go into my OneDrive for Business. In here, I have a file, the credit card file here. So here you see it listed here. You'll see it's got that item here that it contains sensitive information. So I review the policy tip to understand why that is the case. You'll see that I'm warned that it contains credit card information. Now, I've set up the policy to allow the user to report that it's a false positive, and also allow the user to override. So if they put in a reason, it'll be audited, logged, and tracked, and I can then adjust the policy if I need. And then in the back end here, you'll see that I can also, again, go in here and get an overview. I can get graphs. I can get my activity explorer, so I can drill in and look at when DLP failed or who overrode it, so on. And you'll also notice here that we've now got the ability to apply DLP to our endpoints, right? So we can, again, apply it to our devices as well, and that's thanks to the integration of Endpoint Manager in this environment, which again we get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium and E5, and it's going to include those Intune policies and those enhanced security capability. All right. Before we continue on, it's probably about time to take a break. Are there any questions on any of those policies that I've carried? We've talked about here. So most of the stuff we've talked about, the passwordless login, the DLP, the EDiscovery, advanced EDiscovery, all of that is what comes with Business Premium and not provided with the other basic business licenses. So this is the value add. Litigation hold, another value add in Business Premium and above. So again, a lot of these advanced security features, require a policy, or require Business Premium as a minimum. They require somebody to go in and set up the policy to manage, maintain that, and obviously do the training and help users understand all about those. Are there any questions on any of that? And just type into the chat, or give me a thumbs up about that, and we can continue on. Okay, looks as though we got a thumbs up. So let me go in here and on my clock while I'm waiting for reset this. All right, so I don't see any questions coming through, so let me end the recording.